All right, we are on lesson 8, problem set. This lesson is just more practice with line plots. So we're going to go through it. It's very similar to lesson 7, just more practice. So if you look at the situation, we've got our first problem, which is with Dina. Dina stopped under a silver maple tree and collected leaves. At home, she measured the widths of the leaves to the nearest 1/4 inch or 1/4 inch and recorded the measurements as shown below. So you've got this big table with all these different measurements. And so just like we did for lesson 7, we're going to use the data to create a line plot. Look at our line plot though. What do you notice? You've got starting at 5, which they can do. They don't all have to start at 0, going to 6 and then 7. So we have to actually label the numbers before we can actually put our X's on our line plot. So you'll notice we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 sections between each whole number. So we're talking about fourths, just like we have in our problem up here. So if you look at this, this measurement is going to be 5 and 1/4. This is 5 and 2/4, which is also 5 and 1/2. 5 and 3/4, and then 6. Then we're going to repeat that pattern. 6 and 1/4, 6 and 2/4, or 6 1/2, 6 and 3/4, and 7. Okay, so now we can go through. We're going to look at our first measurement, 5 and 3/4. I'm going to go down here. Here's our 5 and 3/4. Put an X and cross it off. Next, 6 1/2, 6 1/2. Cross it off. 6 and 1/4, 6 and 1/4, cross it off. Another 6 1/2. Put another 6 and an X above 6 1/2. And the last one is 6 on that column. Done with that. So I'm going to keep going. You keep going as well, and we'll compare our answers here. So we've got a 6, 6 and 1/4, another 6. 5 and 3/4. Remember, I want my first row, my second row, all those to line up the best I can. 6 and 1/4. 6 and 1/4. 5 1/2. That's the first one there. 6. 6 and 1/4. 6. We've got a battle going on here between these two. Would be the most frequent. Another 6. 5 and 3/4. 6 1/2. 6. 5 and 3/4. 5 and 3/4. 6. 6 and 1/4. 6 and 3/4, 6 1/2. Okay, and I try to make sure my rows across are matching up in a line. Okay, so your line plot should have 0 at the first two measurements, 1 at 5 and 2/4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at 5 and 3/4, 2, 4, 6, 8 at 6, 6 at 6 1/4, 4 at 6 1/2, and 1 at 6 3/4, 0 at 7. So when you're creating a line plot, you're deciding how to write your scale down here, because that's really what this is. You don't have to start at 0 if your first measurement is actually 5 1/2. You're going to have a lot of measurements that are 0 until you get to this part of the number line. So you can shrink it down by cutting off 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's good to have the whole numbers to start, even though we didn't have any measurements here, and then finish with the whole number as well. Okay, so now we just have 2 questions to answer about this line plot. So letter B on the back says, how many more leaves were 6 inches wide than 6 1/2 inches wide? Remember, this phrase, how many more, means subtract. So we're going to subtract 2 numbers. So we're going to find the higher one and figure out that one goes here, and the lower one's going to go here, and then we're going to figure out what it's equal to. So 6 inches, I remember had 8, and that's my tallest one, so I know that's going to be my first one. 6.5 inches has 4, so 8 minus 4 equals 4. So we're going to write a sentence. There were 4 leaves Actually, I'm going to say 4 more leaves at 6 inches than 6.5 inches. Okay, just kind of finding the difference between this column and this column. It's important to show this work. Don't just write there were 4 more. I want to know how you got your 4 different leaves. Okay. The last one is letter C. Find the 3 most frequent measurements on the line plot. What does this tell you about the typical width of a silver maple tree leaf? So when they're measuring a leaf, you know, a maple tree leaf look like that, sort of, they're measuring from here to here, how wide this is. Okay, so the 3 most frequent, well, we know this is really frequent. This is our next highest. Ooh, and this one beat out 5 3/4. So these are our 3. So we need to look at that and draw a conclusion about that. What is it telling us about the typical width? That means the usual or most common width of a maple sugar leaf or a silver maple tree leaf. Well, to me what it says is this tells me that most leaves are between 5 3/4 and 6 1/4 inches wide. Okay. You could even drag that to 6.5 if it didn't tell you to look at the 3 most common. If it just says, look at the line plot. What does it tell you about the typical width of a silver maple tree leaf? I would say this tells me that most leaves are between 5 3/4 and 6 1/2 inches wide, because most of the X's are here. You have one here and one here, and that's not very common. There was only one. Okay? So that's what your homework's going to ask you to do. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention is just a reminder to check your work. Look at this table. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows, 5 in each row. So 5 times 5 is 25 X's. We should go back and double check. Do we have 5? So like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 25. We've got 25. Doesn't guarantee they're all in the wrong space, because I know with third graders sometimes you cross it off here and you put it in the wrong column. So sometimes it's best to just go through a second time and cross off this way. Make sure everything has 2 crosses through it to make sure you've got them in the right place, okay? Your homework has a few less data points to put on the line plot and 1 extra question. So it's asking you to, it kind of breaks down this question like we had here into 2 separate questions, but it's very similar to the problem set, okay? So go ahead and get started and have fun.